Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is the second episode of our 2018 season of Breaking Down Security. I'm Brian Brake. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
You going to say
Those
something?
things.
Hey, celebrity guy down there. You want to say something? I'm pointing at you, Betcher.
Oh.
Why?
You're supposed to say,
Why is he a
hey,
celebrity?
or hi, gang, or what, something.
You will not speak until you're spoken. Speak until you're spoken.
And you want her to proofread your paper. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry. That was an inside joke that happened before the show. But anyway, so we're back for another week of Breaking Down Security. Seems like the news never ends. If it isn't, your meltdowns and your specters, it's more breaches and stuff. But this show has actually been a long time in coming. We talked to this gentleman back at DerbyCon time, I think. And he was so kind as to volunteer me for the judging at DerbyCon for the, what was that? What was that event, John?
Was that the speeches?
Yeah.
The impromptu speeches?
Yeah. The fireside talks or whatever they have that they're kind of impromptu.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was fun stuff. It
That was
required
good.
a lot of drinking.
Yeah. There was a little drinking. Yes.
You mean Who Slide?
Who Slide?
Yes, Who Slides anyway. That's exactly what it was.
I was there. You did a fine job, Brian. No joke.
I missed out on it.
I have to remember to bring my own alcohol next time because I was bumming off of Mike Poor. And
You started slow, but then you finished strong, I thought.
well, yeah, as more alcohol was ingested, I got better, I guess. Is that how it works? Yeah. So this is John Nye. John, say hello to the world.
Hello, I'm John Nye.
Yeah, and John works for a company that I used to work for. I was employee number 17 or 18, and I worked there doing HIPAA audits for healthcare companies. It's called Cynergistek. He's the VP of Cybersecurity Strategy. What does that mean?
Basically, it means I get to do a lot of, with big scare quotes around it, thought leadership type work.
God.
So we do a lot of writing, research, developing new service lines, and then dealing with, I guess you'd say, like advanced issues with clients.
Okay.
So.
All right. So you and Miss Berlin have a lot in common. She used to work at a hospital, so she still wakes up.
I kind of do thought leadership stuff now.
Oh, and you're both thought leaders, so yeah.
Which I really wish there was a better title for.
I do too. We've talked about other ones.
Because what's your actual official title?
VP Cybersecurity Strategy.
Okay, mine's not even anywhere close to that.
Well, on BreakSec, you're the VP of Thought Leadership, Rockstar.
There you go.
Yeah, Rockstar.
And on Berlining Cert Down Security, I am the president
and CEO of Berlining Bound Security. All right, so we wanted to have John on because not only from a healthcare point of view, but a lot of the stuff he's actually drafted. This is a proto white paper he said was going to come out, hopefully, eventually, about some of the
couple weeks.
Next couple weeks. Okay. So we'll post a link to that in the show notes later on when that happens. About some of the handful or various things. He's got 20, but we're going to only go through a handful because it will take us 3 hours to go through a lot of these because there's quite a few different options out there. So 20 things that hospitals could do to increase their security. But I think these things are really industry wide. I think you could probably, adapt these to anything. So, maybe you could give us a little background on why you're writing the paper. Is it just because your company requires it, or are you working up to a talk or something?
It kind of came from, I've been doing consulting, pen testing, security work for about a little over a decade now. And it didn't matter which industry I've been working in. I've been working in healthcare specifically for about 3 years now. But before that, I worked at KPMG and did banking and education and insurance, all kinds of industries. And these issues, you just see them over and over and over again. And nobody seems to be able to figure out how to get them right or invest the right amount of time and effort into them. Mm-hmm. So that was really what drove it. It's just these are the things you see so much over and over and over again. It's really hard to ignore them, but they somehow seem to slip under the radar often.
Yeah. So these are in no particular order, but it's interesting. The number one you put in there is also the same number one that's on the SANS top 20 critical controls. Asset inventory, knowing what's in your environment. Why do we make asset inventory so difficult? Is it because we're not, dealing with the proper, is there a lack of processes in that with regard to
I think there's a little bit of that, and there's also a little bit of the definition of endpoints. So, you start thinking about asset inventories, you've got to remember we're not just talking about the servers and the PCs that the users have. We've also got to look at, all your printers, okay? And then and those are often owned and managed by a separate, a third party. So those are often left off of inventories. We've also looked at connected devices, which are, we see growing exponentially now. And we can even talk about things like the IP cameras that are connected to these networks. These are often secure.
Anything with a MAC address.
Yes, exactly. Anything that can be connected to a network should be inventoried. And I think that's where a lot of it misses, especially in the modern enterprise, not even just hospitals, because so much is no longer managed solely by IT or by security. Ops might own the printers, or in hospital environments, different organizations or different sections of the organizations will own the IoT devices, or some imaging devices might be one department, and those will often get left off. So it's making sure you look at the whole picture.
Right.
I would think hospitals would have an inventory down to a science, right? Because you got to have so and so many defibrillators, and they got to be in the right spot, or CAT scanners, right? And so they've been doing this for 100 years. Mm-hmm. What's the issue? I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is. They have to do inventory on it as far as hospital, right?
Well, and you see that. So if you walk through a hospital, every single thing has a little barcode on it, and they do inventories. Even then, they tend to put things on the networks that get missed. It's more missing processes. So there is always a process in place in every organization I've dealt with to have an inventory, especially to manage life cycles, things along those lines. But to extend that beyond what is purchased only by the IT department, that's where it becomes a really tricky, sticky situation, because you're looking at all these other devices that aren't necessarily owned by you, aren't installed by anybody necessarily. The doctors often have their own budgets, for example, so they'll go buy a new computer or a new device and just plug it in.
Okay.
We had a really hard time getting IT and consequently security baked into those purchasing decisions. That was a several year struggle to get.
And it still is one, because they don't want to answer to anyone. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense, that they don't want to. And then you run into the other problem that I think most processes have, which is that people don't want to do all the work processes require. People don't want to write down every little thing and do every little step. Documentation is a really good example. If you're supposed to document everything you do.
Is that a problem with the process, though? If you have employees that are bypassing the process, does that mean that the process should change? Or
quite possibly.
I mean, are there too many steps? I mean, what's the maximum number of steps before it becomes too, cumbersome to do business?
I absolutely agree. And there needs to be, what's really key is that the process is, rather than trying to meet some, NIST standard or, best practice that you found, it's really critical to make it fit with the culture of the organization. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's really important, to make sure the steps are the kinds of things that make sense within the organization. And really only people who've been there can do that.
Right.
It really takes that customizing inside to make things work properly.
Yeah.
In the long run.
Pride themselves on saving lives. All hospitals do, right? So brass tacks, how does taking an inventory save a life? Do you have to put it in those terms?
So that has actually been something I've been toying with recently, especially that, because you run into, physicians don't so much worry about maybe the security of these connected devices, but the connected devices like an infusion pump is a great example. They're almost always networked, and those are the ones they use to give drugs to patients that are either in comas or getting a surgery, and they'll put in a day's worth of whatever it is, fentanyl or something. And if this device acts wrong, it could give them a whole dose and kill them. So it is a life and death matter in a lot of cases. If they can't find the device, that can be an issue. And even the wrong ones, what patients it's been used on. There's a lot of reasons I think that physicians and the healthcare community should care about the inventory, for the same reason they do inventories internally of the sheets and bedpans, to make sure that they have the capabilities to provide care to all their patients.
Okay. All right. So let's move on down here. So number 3, you have third-party risk management. So you're talking about supply chain is the wild west of the low bidders, and flurry departments keep their storerooms full. So you're talking about business associates and business associate agreements in the non-hospital world. We talk about third-party vetting third parties, making sure that they're secure. I went through this today on several discussions at work. So why is it so important to make sure that business associate agreements or BAAs or third-party agreements are correct or secure or up to date?
Sure. Well, if you look at the wider world of security, you often look at, the SOC 2, I think is the reports that you'll look at to do your third-party risk management, which is they'll have usually one of the big 4, but some sort of consulting firm come in and they perform an audit on their security, put together a generally glowing report that they then pass off to any of their clients. So you could get one from Amazon, for example, if you're using AWS. They can give you this SOC 2, and it has all their findings from pen tests and vulnerability scans and assessments. And that's what they use. And then in healthcare, it has to go a step further, because we have to look at actually making agreements to share protected health information. And that's why there's an additional layer of agreement that has to be there. The reason that's a cause for concern is that we're looking for the cheapest bid, and we're hoping for the best result in almost every case. And that's pretty counterintuitive, to pay less and expect a good result. A vast majority of breaches are happening through third parties, and a lot of the biggest ones are happening through a third party to gain that initial access.
So what you're saying is, don't necessarily look at the price tag. For hospitals, though, that's that equates to, again, the whole saving lives thing. It seems like a broken record when they say that, because it's like, okay, great, we get it, saving lives, yeah, but I really need you to, make sure that these people are not going to be sharing out the personal health information. So do they do data classifications in hospitals where it's like, depending on the business agreement, they have different security controls in place?
Yes, absolutely. And so there'll be business agreements where it's basically just a supply chain. So they might be just providing, sponges and linens, something like that. And then you have ones where it's an agreement with, the EHR vendor, and they have access. And the EHR is the electronic health records, and that's where they keep all the medical records. And in that case, they have to have access to those records as well.
Wait, so
tell us what the right way to approach this is, and what the wrong may be from a hospital's perspective. Because I recently received an email from a customer, and I'd never heard of these guys before. And all of a sudden, they're asking for Spectre and Meltdown mitigation, and they wanted some report that says what we're doing to remediate this critical vulnerability. And I'm like, where were these guys when we have, remote code execution flaws hitting the public and things like that? No, they don't care about those. They care about something that requires user access to begin with, and then, escalation of privilege vulnerability. To me, that's the wrong way to approach it, right? When something hits the news and then all of a sudden you care.
But I think that's more of a systemic problem where, we knee-jerk react to something that comes out on the news.
Right.
Everyone really does that. And we see it everywhere. I mean, I can't even count how many emails I got from clients about Spectre after it was announced.
Yep.
Dozens. And, replied to all of them. It's not as critical as they're saying. Calm down. There's not much you can do.
Is that what you did? You just said reply all and BCC'd everybody and then said,
I wish.
Don't worry, it's fine. Send.
No. Not quite that simple. Definitely more nuanced.
Patch your shit.
Yeah, exactly.
No, don't patch your shit because things got backed out and kernels got screwed. Yeah.
But anyway, so what's really key is to triage, just like when you get a vulnerability scan, how many of those things on there are really not critical?
Right.
We have to just use our common sense. We have to think about how that access is gained. As we can see with Spectre, you have to have access to the system for it to work.
Yep.
Physical access. So that already lowers the severity from something like the SMB remote code execution we can do, that I still find in virtually every pen test. I find systems that are vulnerable to that.
So the emails you get, do you think those are from companies that are less mature, that are not triaging this or not thinking in that respect? They're just shooting from the hip and going, okay, it's a named vulnerability. Everybody panic. It's all on fire. Burn it down.
No, I think a vast majority of it is not the security people or the CISO that's freaking out. It's another executive that saw it on CNN.
Yeah.
And is saying, we need answers, reach out to our consultants. We need to make sure we're covering our bases. And, that puts the executive at ease in the end is what it does.
Right.
But I don't think that I think inside of our community, inside of security, I don't think there's as much of an issue with panic when something gets on the news. We all kind of are jaded a little, we're used to things getting names and aren't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Showing up in the news. So I think that most of the emails I see, at least, there's an executive somewhere that said, oh my God, we need to figure this out, and panic.
Right.
Yeah.
How many emails did you get, Miss Amanda, from the Meltdown Spectre stuff?
I was in the office that day, and I was personally asked maybe by 2 or 3 people, and then on a couple conference calls, but I didn't get any. Nobody has my email yet, so
you're so lucky. Yeah,
I'm still new enough that it doesn't matter.
Change soon.
Yeah,
they'll find you.
Yeah, we got hit with that. We got even our own internal people were asking those questions, like, how do we put it out? What are we saying? What are we fixing? that kind of stuff. So
yep, and we saw the same.
Yeah,
and it makes sense. It's good that people are noticing this stuff. To some extent, the media blitz that some of these big, security issues have gotten over the last year have helped. In the long run, they've made the budgets go up. They've made, the executives, the CEOs sitting up there start to care a little bit more.
Right.
And I think it's making a difference in the long run.
Yep. Okay, so I did 2. Miss Berlin, do you want to do one of the ones on the list here?
I don't have that document open because of the issues I was having.
Is it back again?
Well, I told you I did the exact same thing I did before and broke the new document. So.
Oh, okay. Well, how about you, Mr. Betcher?
If you want to just tell me what it is. Oh, wait, it should be in my email, right?
Yeah, you got the email too. I copied and pasted the entire content of the email.
Oh, okay.
So, Betcher, do you want to do one?
Okay, okay. Medical devices, yeah. let's skip to number 5, malware and APTs.
All right, you do that one, and then I'll do the medical device one.
Weird.
I like that one.
So they've kind of become household names, right? Is what you're talking about. And when you say malware, people know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
You want to discuss that briefly?
Yeah. Well, so the one thing, I actually was working on another article earlier today, and when we say malware, most people know what that is. We say ransomware, everybody knows what that is, even though it is a form of malware. Another thing. So I guess in the first half of 2017, there were in excess of 10 million records breached, 12 million patient records in just the first half of 2017 that were specifically because of ransomware attacks. 250% growth in ransomware attacks.
When you say breach, what does that mean? That they were actually encrypted?
Yes. So the way that the guidance from HIMSS and OCR goes, if ransomware effectively encrypts a machine that has protected patient data on it, it is considered a breach. So that is the rule from HIPAA. So when you go in and assess ransomware in healthcare, you have to look at what the encrypted systems had on it, and if, say, it's the EHR, and that had 50,000 records on it, you now have a 50,000 record breach because you lost control of that data.
If you can prove that this data was not stolen before it was encrypted, or was not stolen in encrypted form by the attackers, you don't have to.
Yes, if you can prove that.
If you can prove that, how do you prove that? Well, you have either excellent logging, you have network, what do you call it? Where you take basically PCAPs of everything.
Yeah, packet capturing of everything.
Or you have awesome logging on the endpoint that did get ransomed, right? And then you can prove with the firewalls or whatever that they didn't take that data, that the executable didn't execute these particular commands and create a network connection to the attackers and start sending data to them.
Agreed. But it's like, but if you think about that, how hard that would be to prove, how much evidence you would have to be able to say, no encrypted packets left my network for this entire period of time that we didn't look at, that we didn't decrypt. So you'd have to be looking at all that data to be able to prove it.
Why do hospitals allow people to surf the web and check emails and do everything on the EHR systems? Wouldn't that be something that you'd want to restrict, any kind of outbound, egress or anything like that? I mean, so check Facebook on your own shit. Don't check Facebook on the EHR, that kind of thing.
Sure. Well, and they don't. So that, when you're accessing the EHR system, you log in, it's always segmented on a separate VLAN from
it's supposed to be.
Ideally.
I shouldn't say always. It's supposed to always be segmented precisely.
Is that what you're saying?
No, it wouldn't be VPN. They just would have rules to allow in, certain authorized software, and they usually have. It's usually like a portal. It's like an app that they run on their system. They log into it, and then that accesses the EHR through whatever port is allowed.
But if I have a Trojan on that machine, it's game over.
Yeah, if you have a Trojan, you're taking like screenshots in that machine. Yep, you could start stealing EHR records or health records, and then everyone's in trouble.
I mean, there's a lot of different roles. There's a lot of different roles that need access to the internet as well. When they're also need access to the EHR, so sometimes it's harder.
Agreed.
To restrict those kind of people.
It's really the same reason that no organization or very few restrict internet access, because people need it. It's how we do our jobs. Most people, even people who work in healthcare, I'm sure they don't memorize all that. They probably use Google or special libraries and things like that online.
And you're not going to take internet access away from a doctor.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, they allow
They're going to bring in their own internet as soon as you tell them that.
Sure.
Yep.
But so you can check Facebook on an EHR system.
Now, no, you couldn't, because the EHR system is a server that's sitting in a data center. I mean, nobody's technically on that system.
Oh, okay. You're on a terminal.
You could check your Facebook from a workstation that also has access to EHR records.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
So just an interesting tidbit. Windows 10 does have NetFlow data stored in it. So you can prove whether or not you lost a certain amount of data. It won't tell you what data was lost, but it will tell you how much left.
It'd still be useful, though, because 50,000 records doesn't fit in a megabyte.
That's right. So you can prove it if you hired the right person to come in and look.
And all of it was exfilled over DNS.
Yes.
Exactly.
Or HTTPS or whatever.
Took a long time.
Yeah, there's ways it could happen, ways they can get that data out. And that's why they made that ruling. Why they've made that guidance. It's just so difficult to say they didn't take that data.
Right.
I want to know if there's ever been like a case where someone has said, like, this would never be me, because I can never, like, for sure say anything. I have a very hard time with that. But somebody said, no, I know for sure that none of this data was taken because I did this, this, and this. I want to know what the skills are of the person that comes in back behind that person and tries to prove them wrong or prove them right. I feel like that would be interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put my stamp on that.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Say absolutes in security are pretty rare.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So, Miss Berlin, you go ahead and do one.
Which one was that? I was going to do medical devices. Yeah, so like biomed devices.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen, like you talked about before, like the pumps and CT scanners and just like any type of medical device that you're like, oh, surprise, it has an operating system on it. We didn't tell you when you bought it. Nice horror story from the hospital that I worked at. We actually had what is it when they like heart cath. Like our heart cath department bought this new system, and they shipped in all of this equipment we didn't know had computers on it. Well, like the people that mattered didn't know it had computers, like operating systems on it.
Sure.
And this is when we had like 40 people in our domain admin. One of them logged in with domain admin creds to add it to the domain, and the vendor had shipped it with Sasser and took down like our entire domain.
Oh wow!
From it like a biomed device, yeah.
Wow, that's nasty. That's nasty.
And we see this, So I mean, all the hospitals that I've walked through are full of connected little devices. In the patient rooms, they might have like vitals monitors, those infusion pumps, all the imaging that they do are all connected. And that's everything, x-rays, CTs, MRIs, all that stuff.
They're starting to have like smart boards in all the rooms.
Yep. They're starting to add those. They're doing, more and more hospitals are starting to add smart, charts. The patient charts on the end of the bed. They'll have a little iPad type device sitting there. So you're getting, it's basically exponentially growing the number of devices that they're connecting to the networks. The smart organizations are at the very least segmenting those completely away from all other networks, including the internet. Those devices should not have access to the internet. And we too often see that where they are not segmented or see them connected to where they can reach the internet. And that's where we get fun things like Mirai that happened earlier this year, where people build botnets out of these insecure devices. The other major problem is that any one of these, especially the medical devices, are ridiculously expensive. A cheap one is 10 grand, cheap, like a heart monitor. But you get into CT scanners and MRIs, you're talking millions of dollars to buy these devices. So they're often not even purchased outright. They lease them, many of these, or they buy them through a third party, the same way that many companies do printing, where they hire like Xerox to come in and provide all their printers, provide all the maintenance. Well, the problem then comes when we find out there's a big vulnerability in one of these devices, because the manufacturer will often say, nope, you cannot upgrade it. They just won't let you.
Yeah.
They won't let you update them. No patches. Sorry. End of story.
Yeah, I have composed like a list of good things that you should always ask vendors before you agree to buy their stuff.
Yep, and that's one.
That's one of them.
Yeah. And who has control over it?
Yes, yeah. Not only who patches it, but should we be the ones patching it because we trust ourselves more than we do you to keep them updated? Yeah, and if you are patching them, how are you getting access to this stuff?
Right.
Yep.
Well, for compliance purposes, if your company has compliance requirements and you're waiting for vendor patches, you're going to run into your SLAs fairly quickly, especially if you have to patch a critical or a high in a certain amount of time. If you're waiting for a special Ubuntu patch for a system or, kernel patch for a ticketing system that shall remain nameless that rhymes with Fat Lassian, you're going to have they'll probably never be a sponsor of the show. It's cool. You're going to bust your SLAs fairly quickly on a critical finding. So, those definitely things you have to think about. Ms. Berlin, are you going to be sharing that list anywhere? Because
I'm having that's where the image was at that caused me the problems to lose access to the Google document that I was talking about. So I'm currently copying and pasting it from one Drive account into a text document back into my Google Drive account.
Oh, that sounds secure.
Yeah. I mean,
try to double click every image you get.
Yeah.
It's just a screenshot from Facebook that I edited. Okay. I like blurred out the names. It literally says, because it was healthcare related.
Right.
Somebody said on Facebook, what kind of idiot company installs our product with a non-hardened or non-patched Windows server?
Right.
And the top comment is the entire medical industry.
So that's an interesting question. So, you get all this fancy tech, and it doesn't matter about hospitals or anything. Mm-hmm. Why aren't manufacturers giving organizations like, this is how we recommend you install it? Because this will allow you to both remain secure and also to enjoy the full functionality of the system. Otherwise they just give it to you and go, hey, here, you can put this on Windows XP if you want. It's all good.
Sure.
Shouldn't they have some kind of minimum requirements like, Windows 10 and, you're going to have to isolate your network. They are getting there? Okay.
Yes. So there has been some guidance recently put out. I believe it was OCR. Don't quote me on that. That put out some guidance specifically to the manufacturers of medical devices that are security related.
Okay.
But the thing you got to think about with these is the same thing you think about with the IoT devices. They're made to work when you plug them in.
Right.
Period. There shouldn't be any. If you buy a Nest for your house, it better work right away, or you're going to be pissed off. And it's the same thing with an infusion pump or anything else. They come plug and play ready, which we all know means that they're going to have a million extra ports open and services running that don't need to be there. And up until, now that guidance is out, but all this older stuff, there's no reason for them to tell that information.
Yeah.
I mean, they want it to work. They're not going to tell them, hey, you could disable these services and it'd be more secure, but now you're going to have more trouble accessing it, and they're going to complain, and they might not buy it again.
Right.
You got to think sales and all that.
So,
I think that's what's driven it to where it's at now.
So for those of you who are acronym, fumbling with the Googles, OCR is Office of Civil Rights, which is an organization that is part of Health and Human Services. So
that makes so much more sense.
Yeah. So they,
I was thinking optical character recognition.
So yeah,
I probably should have clarified that.
No, that's okay. When I worked at Cynergistek, OCR started this audit program where they were going in and holding a bunch of healthcare systems' feet to the fire and finding them. That was a new pilot project for them, and now I guess they're doing that on the reg and making lots of money finding hospitals. So that's an interesting point. So these companies, and we've talked about this earlier, they want to find the cheapest deal possible, but in doing so, they open themselves up to possible audits and additional fines by OCR. Would it not behoove them to talk to a company that won't get them fined in the end, or are they just waiting? They don't expect to ever get audited, and they don't worry about it. It's all short term per quarter
it's
thing.
Kind of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other situation in a lot of cases, I believe.
Yeah.
So they look at it and they say, we could pay, this much right now, or we could pay the fines later.
Right.
And I think that there's, I'm trying to think of the word, but difficult logic that they have to do, and they have to make that hard choice. Do we go for the security, or do we go for the affordability and hope that we don't get audited? And if we do,
we just worry about it later.
Yeah.
Do they have insurance for that kind of stuff too, or is that not in?
Same thing. Yep, same kinds of insurance. Cyber insurance that many organizations have. So
seems to me they'd save money by not having to have all that insurance if they just did everything right.
Yeah, well, insurance is a requirement, though, so they're required to have it.
I didn't know that was a requirement. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's good to have insurance if you can get it, or since it's a requirement, because to have secure systems is like an infinite requirement, right? Mm-hmm. You just can't. There's
exactly
right.
It would cost an infinite amount of money to be totally secure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the same reason we have life insurance. If someone out there decides they want to kill you, there's not much you can do to stop them.
Right.
And it's the same if they want to attack your network. If somebody decides that you are the target, probably going to get in.
Okay.
At some point.
Yeah.
I'm a good fighter. I don't know.
I believe, maybe you won't. But I mean,
Not if I kill him first.
But if you had no idea, some guys out there scheming to break in your house and murder you.
I'm sure there's more than one. At this point.
Do you have a list of people that would break into your house?
I'm talking about exes here. I'm just talking about some random serial killer. That's all.
Right.
That's why I live where I do. Nobody will come to Ohio.
Targeted attacks.
That's true. I have no intention of going there.
So let's talk about 9, 10, and 11 all at once, because it seems like they're all kind of the same. You got targeted attacks, organized cybercrime, and nation state. It's very lucrative. Even when I worked at Cynergistek, it was $50 a medical record from what Mac had told me. But now it's gotten even more because there's more information that they store in these things, obviously. Yeah. So you mentioned nation state attacks. Why is it so? Why are nation states attacking hospitals?
Sure. So we've seen a lot of really like an explosion of targeted attacks on healthcare organizations. And a prime example of a nation state attack on healthcare would be the Aetna attack, which has been linked to nation states, the same ones that attacked OCR. And OCR is the Office of Civil Rights.
Right.
They're the ones who, they have all of the security clearance records for, I said OCR. It's not right, is it? It's the OPM. That's what it is.
Yeah, Office of Personnel Management.
Office of Personnel Management. Yeah. There we go. And they have all of those security clearance records.
Right.
And they believe the purpose of it was that Aetna records crossed with the OPM records. You're now able to find out a lot more information about national or government employees. And that's what they're looking for. And that's what they're targeting. The reason they believe it's nation states beyond signatures and what have you is that none of that information has showed up for sale. And there was I believe over 1 million records in the Aetna, and every record is worth $300 to $500 on the open market right now. So nobody who cares about money would have not sold them by now. They'd be up for sale.
That's true. And I guess with the Experian breach,
which they tie also into those.
Yeah, those would all kind of fit together. So instead of a breach of a single person, you're looking at an entire profile of a person from their financial to their health and whatever.
And now they have it on virtually every American.
Right. Well, they've had mine for years, so
sure, and they probably had mine too. But it's crazy to think about. And now they can cross that with the OPM records and figure out who has security clearances, where they live, maybe who works for clandestine services, things along those lines.
And they know you eat too many tacos and your blood pressure.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
so it's pretty scary.
But nation states or other organizations are doing it for intelligence gathering, whereas like organized crime and those are doing it for like ransomware. So am I right in this?
Yep. So that's what we're seeing on that end. So for the crime end of things, we're seeing a lot more organization. So a lot more like larger groups working together. Making more sophisticated types of malware, ransomware that is more effective and not seen before. We're also seeing more 0 days, throughout like 2017. How many do we see? Several. Those two things combined are making it a lot more accessible to the criminals. Then you couple in the fact that a credit card is only worth a couple dollars, and a health record is worth a couple hundred or more. You've got more incentive. And then you couple in the third thing that many of us have known for, a decade now, is that healthcare is behind the curve in security. So you couple those three things together, and it's basically like the perfect storm for these criminals. There's nothing stopping them and every reason to attack.
Well, okay, here's my only issue with that whole line of thinking. If hospitals are so far behind the curve, why do organized crime people have to continually make more sophisticated malware, Trojanware, if you can just send an email that says golf tee times to a doctor and infect an entire organization?
Sure. No, I see what you're saying. And I think that is, in the last couple of years, we've seen a significant bump in the amount of security that healthcare organizations have.
Right.
So they've realized what's going on and they're stepping up their game. So I think that's why we see more sophisticated malware, because people are having more sophisticated security. But they still are behind.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
If you send a malware that the signature is known, it doesn't matter how bad their security is, it's going to find it. Right. If they have antivirus running, it'll find it.
Right.
So that's why it's getting more sophisticated. But we see things like these, like the Mirai botnet, things like that, where people rent them out. And we see as a service with a lot of these as well. Okay. Where they'll provide them as a service to other criminals.
Right. So as we were talking about that, I thought it might be a good idea to do a little bit of news, because we have somebody here from the healthcare industry. So I found some news reports about hospitals that had been breached, and there are two different types of news reports. One's actually, I think, one's in North Carolina. The other one's in. I put the links in the chat, Ms. Berlin, if you can't access it. So I was actually the one about the Bitcoin, which is sad because Bitcoin took a dump today, apparently. So, your Bitcoins are now worth $10,000 less. I don't know if it's rebounded by, 7:30 Pacific time on the 17th of January, but last time I saw it was like $8,900 per coin. So people are starting to take a bath on that. So one of these asked for $17,000 worth of Bitcoin. And when this story originally came out a year ago, it was that one's a year ago. Okay. So that's cool, though. It still works. Hackers installed a virus that encrypted their files, and they asked for $17,000 worth of Bitcoins. At the time, a year ago, it was only worth a fraction of the cost. Now it's like one Bitcoin worth it was worth one Bitcoin until yesterday. So they're saying the Eastern European hackers did this. Is this organized crime kind of thing when they're talking about Eastern European, or are they just...
That's where we're seeing, and by we, I just mean the industry.
Right.
But that's typically, it looks like a lot of the organized criminals, syndicates are coming from like those Eastern Bloc countries.
Okay.
Is where they're setting up shop. There's also the theories around whether they're misleading. They're actually working with the government or not.
Right.
There's that too.
So Mr. Betcher can probably answer some of this too, but with the addition of the increased processing fees and time of Bitcoins, is the idea of using Bitcoin and ransomware starting to come to an end?
I don't think it will. I don't think it can. If you look at like the history of ransomware, it really couldn't do anything until there was digital currency that's virtually untraceable.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe it could work without Bitcoins, but it couldn't work without a cryptocurrency. Exactly.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they have to get their money from cryptocurrency. There's not a really good way other than that to do it.
Like wire transfers wouldn't work?
The onus is on the hospital to to get their money into Bitcoin and then transfer it over.
Mm-hmm. Which is typically what they do. And there's actually a lot of people out there that offer that service.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay.
Offer what service to
help turn cash into Bitcoins and pay off ransoms.
That's true. Some consultants will actually say you have to prepare to pay a ransom if time comes. So let's get an account started. Let's put like $5 in it or whatever, and let's have a process in place to be able to transfer money into that account and fund the attackers if it comes to that.
Exactly. And I mean, we'd still go with that same as the United States, don't negotiate with criminals if you can avoid it, but there's going to be cases where there's just no other option. The loss is too great and they have to just pay it.
Well, they just restore from backup, right? Oh, right.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
We were going to do that next week.
Or they've been infected longer than they thought, or they got the wrong system. There is cases where paying the ransom is what has to be done, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you never know. The problem is you never know. I mean, it is a business for these criminals, and it's in their advantage to actually provide the decryption keys. It's in their favor to do that, because then other people will pay, and if they don't, then people are not going to trust them.
That's right.
But there's always that risk.
These consultants work with you because they've worked with other victims before. And they know to talk to the attackers and say, well, how do I know that you have the decryption keys? Can you, let me send you part of the money and give us, access to be able to decrypt some of it. Like that, which
they'll do, or they'll give them access to a couple of files to prove they have them.
Right.
And we'll see that.
Send them some files and prove to the attackers that they have the ability to decrypt them, things like that. So there's some back and forth that's going to take place. Otherwise, you may lose $55,000 and get no data out of it back.
Precisely.
So
that's also why they keep it cheap. It's the same reason that a personal one is $200. It's something small enough that it could be considered a small payment.
Yeah. So something I was talking to one of our Slackers, director of info. Her handle is DIR InfoSec, so she's director of InfoSec. We were talking about insurance because the company that she works for has insurance against breaches or malware or ransomware. And, I was talking about that with her, and she's like, yeah, they, $55,000 is probably cheap, because if the what do they call that thing where you pay $500, the deductible, if the deductible is $100,000, the hospital's going to believe they save $45,000 by not having to pay their insurance company for the ransom, because a lot of insurance companies are going to come back and go, well, did you do your due diligence and your due care to protect that data? And as we've seen in some cases, insurance companies won't pay that because they'll be like, well, you didn't do enough. And so you're going to be out money anyway. So, that's why
so if you're not doing enough, instead of paying the deductible, you put that money into Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I suppose that's an option, but I would not recommend it if you're going to run into, so be careful.
Bit
we
too
recommend.
speculative for a hospital. But no, her point was, they're going to save money by, some people who have insurance but don't want to, they have an accident, they don't want to claim the insurance because their premiums are going to go up, would, pay the ransom versus, asking their insurance company to do it, because in the long run they may end up losing more money than, by not they'd lose more money by asking the insurance company to pay for it. So I thought that was a very interesting insight that I didn't think about. It's like window chips on your windshield or your windscreens, where it's like you pay $20 to somebody to replace it instead of paying $500 to the insurance company to replace the whole windshield. So the economy has been created because people don't want to go to their insurance companies and say, "Hey, we effed up. We need you to save our bacon." So I
precisely.
I appreciate her, and you're making me dizzy. I don't do well with moving things.
Oh, me? I forgot I was on camera. Sorry.
What are you doing, the Macarena or something? He's walking around.
Just pacing.
At least he didn't go to the bathroom and just put us on mute.
Put us on mute. Hold on, guys. I'll be back. Whoosh. Anyway.
Nope. Forgot I was on camera, just pacing.
That's okay. So John, you do work for Cynergistek. You have a company that does things. So if, you don't sponsor us, but, if people are interested, how would they get a hold of you to discuss more about healthcare security issues?
Sure. Yeah. If they have any advanced issues they need,
yes.
Talking about.
You can always go to cynergistek.com, which you could probably get the spelling from, the notes, but it's CYNERGISTEK.
Yeah.
For anybody that cares.
Yeah.
You can also find me on Twitter at endis_nye or endisnye_com. Sorry about that. So you can find me on Twitter. And then in March, I will be speaking at HIMSS.
HIMSS.
I'm pretty excited about. So
where's HIMSS at?
HIMSS is in Vegas this year at the Sands.
Always Vegas. I don't know.
No, last year it was in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep. I had to go. Went last year, didn't speak. This is the first time speaking, so I'm excited.
Nice.
Should be fun.
And when is that? When is?
I believe it's the 8th at 9 a.m.
The 8th of February?
Of March.
Oh, March 8th. Okay.
Is when I'm actually speaking, but the conference is the 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Right. Okay. Very cool.
So,
Very cool.
So if anybody's at HIMSS, look me up.
Very nice.
I always wanted to go to HIMSS, but I was never far enough up in the food chain to be able to go.
It's crazy. So if you've been to Black Hat, right?
Yeah.
So take the Black Hat floor times
medical
about 50,
devices
times about 50. Easy.
Oh my god!
Wow.
I made it through the whole thing, and I spent like a whole day walking around the floor.
That's incredible.
It's insane.
God.
Where do they have it then?
In the conference centers. Like last year, it was at the Orlando Conference Center.
Okay.
The big event center there, and just the whole floors. All the floors were just covered in displays.
Wow.
So it's like San Diego Comic-Con. They got 500,000 square foot of convention space or something, and they utilize it. Okay.
They go crazy.
Very cool. I'm going to save you to next to last, Miss Berlin, because I want to talk to Mr. Betcher. Mr. Betcher, talk about the thing with you and Mr. Goff.
Thing? You mean the podcast thing?
Yes.
Unless there's another thing we don't know about.
They got a thing going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to do an IR podcast. And I don't, there's not any that I know of that do an IR podcast. What we're going to talk about, which is preparation for an attack all the way up to mitigating an attack. We're not too much going to get into the advanced analysis and the digital forensics piece, but we're going to stick with strictly incident response.
Okay.
Right. So we're going to talk about, and this can apply to all InfoSec professionals to know more about what incident responders should do, how they should perform their jobs, what to expect if you manage an incident responder, things like that, and what these guys do.
Right. Okay.
So we're going to have a podcast dedicated to incident response.
And very funnily enough, they're just using my name. I'm not going to be on the show, but it's called Breaking Down Incident Response. So we already have a domain. We already have the libsyn for it. It's going to be available RSS, kind of like what we're doing here. I may tweet it out from time to time, but I'm not going to be on it unless, they're really hard up for a guest and they really want me to come on. So this is all their bag, and I'm actually looking forward to it. It'll be another podcast I can add to my my repertoire. So
put it on your resume.
Yeah, exactly. So how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to talk about the podcast or malware or your LogMD or what have you?
Yeah, just log-md.com. Go to the website. My Twitter handle is @BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED.
Fantastic. And you're never on our Slack. Oh no, I'm sorry. You are on our Slack. You thumbed up a post today, so that was awesome. I appreciate you for
that's my
helping out. So
yeah. Hey, I'm one of the 1,000 roughly people on the Slack channel. It's like a freaking city.
It's like ever since
it's like Podunk, Missouri.
Yeah, pretty much about as many people. Yeah,
it's a third of my town.
Since we took the invite link off of our show notes, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So yeah, we took the invite link off of our show notes because we're worried about bots and spammers coming. So if you are interested in joining our Slack, you can DM us on Twitter @Breaksec, BRAKESEC, or you can email us at bds.podcast@gmail.com. We do get to them fairly quickly. And
do not DM me. My DMs aren't open.
Yeah, I opened up the break. I opened up the Breaksec DMs.
10,000 followers. Now I need to stop these DMs.
I figured I was just going to quit Twitter now.
Oh, oh man!
Drop the mic.
It can't get any better.
Yeah.
I mean, the next limit's like what, 100,000 or something? Like I'm never going to hit that.
Yeah, That would take Swift on security level of awesomeness.
Oh yeah. I wonder if she's. Yeah, I think she's over 100,000.
Yep. Oh yeah.
It's still pretty aggressive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
I like those numbers.
Yep.
Yeah, she's at 214. There's no way.
Yeah. So so you can follow me on Twitter at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. I already mentioned the shows at Breaksec. I am going to be teaching a 504 mentor course. I just got the venue today. We're going to be on the Microsoft campus in Seattle. So if you are interested in taking 504 and you don't want to take a whole week off and you just want to do it a couple hours a night, once a week, on a Thursday, it starts March 1st. The early bird pricing is still available until February 1st, so you can get some money off on that. We also have deals, so if you've got 3 people who want to do it, there's a 2 for 3 deal. So if you have 3 people sign up, the first 2 have to pay, but the third person is free. So you get 30% off on the class for 3 people, which is fairly awesome. And the guy who is going to host us at Microsoft got 50% off on his venue discount, which is fantastic. He paid $2,600 for a SANS course. So if you are interested in doing that, there's a link in the show notes, or you can just go to sans.org and Google search for not Google search, but just search on the website for under mentor courses for my name, and I will be running that. So for 7 weeks, 3 hours a night on a Thursday. So that's pretty awesome. I'm glad SANS is. They don't know what they've done. They've completely screwed that pooch. It's just the Titanic's hit this iceberg, and they've let me on the train. So, book club's coming up on the Slack. If you want to join the Slack, like we said, DM us or email us. We're doing book club, how to measure anything in cybersecurity risk. One of our moderators, our fantastic moderators, David Sybuck, is going to be the moderator for the book club. So you buy the book, either the ebook or the physical copy, and every week we go over a different chapter or 2 chapters, and we discuss what we thought about the book, kind of like Oprah's book club, but more popular.
Way better,
more popular. I think we're more popular than Oprah's book club. Yeah. And
you actually learn something.
That's right. And as if that wasn't enough for the announcements, starting the first Monday in February and going for 4 sessions, Miss Berlin is going to be doing a disrupting the cyber kill chain We're still
I
working
should
on the
put
title.
that on my calendar.
Yeah, you probably do. I'm
I
going to
wondered
set.
why you said the first Monday in February. I wasn't sure what exactly you're talking about. So
Yeah.
I'm glad.
So what we're going to do is the price of the classes is going to be $100. If you want access, we're going to do it just like we did before with the other classes that we've done in the past. It's $100 for the class for 4 sessions, so it's basically $25 a class. We're going to do PayPal. We're not going to do Patreon because it's a pain in the ass trying to get all that done in the proper order, and the way they charge you every month, and getting people to not be at the $25 level, and people getting charged for a class that they're no longer taking. So if you want to do it, there's a link in the show notes to a paypal.me address where you can pay for the class, and we will sign you up for that. And we do it over Zoom. We can take up to 50 people in the course. If you can't take the course, for $50, you can have early access to the videos. I promise to put a little more production value in them, put little cards and fancy text and stuff on them to make them look fancy. So, yeah, that's it. If you have any other questions about the class, please feel free to email us or DM us, and we can fill you in on some of that. I would like a synopsis, perhaps, of what to expect, and maybe.
Only if you go up another register.
Another octave.
I think only dogs can hear me at that point. So hopefully we'll have a synopsis and maybe a class schedule on what's going to be
I can give like a
covered.
One now. Do you want me to give a little one now? Or do you want me to give you one to put it on the notes or something?
Yeah, something in the notes. We don't have to have it now. Yeah, but it would be nice to have something that we can publish or discuss at large.
I have something already. So.
Cool. All right. Well, that was it. I'm done. Anybody have any other closing thoughts?
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Thank you, John, for coming. I appreciate
Absolutely,
you.
anytime.
Yeah. Please.
When does this one drop?
This is going to drop in 2 days on the 19th of January.
I will be in DC at ShmooCon.
Oh, that's right, ShmooCon. Also,
I leave tomorrow.
If you are on our Slack, we do have a special ShmooCon track. Or I said Shmoo. It's ShmooCon track. Yeah. For, if we used it to great effect at DerbyCon. So if you are at Shmoo and you want to coordinate, meetups or whatever, it's a lot easier than trying to, figure out Telegraph or Wire, all that BS that everyone else is using. So please feel free to come in and enjoy that.
Yeah, I'll have all my equipment, so I'm going to try and take some good audio.
Sweet. Yeah, take your microphone because hotel audio is awful. Yeah,
I know
firsthand.
Like the taper section at a fish show? Is that what it's going to look like? Awesome.
Yes.
Exactly like
That's
that.
awesome. We totally need to start doing that all the conferences.
On the podcast, just seek her out.
That's right.
You can't miss her.
She's in a Tyrannosaurus suit.
What's
normally.
that supposed to mean?
You're
very intimidating, I guess.
You know what? People tell me that all the time, and I don't get it.
I ain't touching that. I'm back. I'm out.
No, people tell me I'm intimidating, and I feel like I'm not at all.
I'm not scared of you.
See? He knows what's going on.
You're in a Tyrannosaurus Rex suit running around chasing other Tyrannosaurus Rexes, so,
It was a Velociraptor.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, your arms didn't.
Also pretty awesome.
It was like this. Your arms didn't come out.
My arms were longer than hers were.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So, all right. Well, we're done. Everyone, this is Breaking Down Security for the week of January 17th, 2018. Everyone have a great week. Be nice to one another, please. Please. And we will talk to you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks all.